Need for Speed Unbound, Volume 9. Where is it? What is it? When is it? Now, as far as we know, this is the final update that's going to be available for Need for Speed Unbound. In fact, let's look back to this. As you can see, we've had these volumes other than Volume 9, which has not been confirmed what the hell it is. Just to run it back, Need for Speed Unbound has been completely changed as to what it was originally. They have done amazing work to make this just what it is today. And to clarify, if you have no idea, by the way, if you notice my car, there's not even a NOS effect. I think that it's broken. It's a great way to start. Sorry, guys. The first and most game-changing for the multiplayer experience was the introduction of PvP. Separate speed lists for PvP. Before, you would have to go into free roam and you would have to hope and pray that someone was going to race with you. Now, you can just jump in and play, which, again, maybe should have been there from the start, but they added it. Then, of course, the Underground update added drift and drag, which, in my opinion, is the most significant update other than PvP. That's also pretty significant. We can't say no to the PvP system, whether you use PvP or not. It did kind of separate and make it so that everyone's life was better. But come on, man, no drifting. This is good. And finally, of course, we had the cop career, which basically added a whole new progression path. And ultimately, the cops and racers dynamic. This is something that just wasn't available before. And so now you may be fairly questioning, why are you talking about this? We've already experienced these updates. Well, that's because of the system that they're using to build these updates, their methodology, Kaizen. And what Kaizen means is they are basically updating the game over time and adding these elements as to build up to something bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, you could take that a few ways, but ultimately it seems like they're building something that they can use again in the future and alter and change it in different ways. So far we've had the drag, the drift, the PvP separation. We've introduced cops, which I think is pretty damn significant. Whether you enjoy that update or not, it could be taken into really different ways in the future. For example, we can't currently use cops in free roam, so could there be something there? Just so you know, I joined the session, I got the cops stuff. I have this issue too. It's not just you. And also, it kicks me out of the game when I try and return back to the garage sometimes. I think it's pretty safe to assume that this game is definitely hitting its limit in terms of it wasn't designed to have this many updates. So the logical thing to do is to look at this image again. So as you can see, based on the updates, the Audi head-to-head update didn't really have a theme, but it did add the foundation for a lot of these updates. But nonetheless, no theme of game on there. And then we've got the drag and drift, which was Underground. So this game, probably one of the most popular parts of the franchise. 15 million is basically when they stopped counting the sales of the Underground series, so that kind of makes sense. Then Hot Pursuit. So then that doesn't really make sense because from what we know, Hot Pursuit, although it did well, it didn't do as well as the Underground times. At least, you know, if that's what we're basing on the new Hot Pursuit, which the cover is based on that. So the old Hot Pursuit, you could guess, is a little bit better. But we're looking at like single-digit millions for those games opposed to the 15 million that Underground did. So we couldn't really say that it's going to be a game that is incredibly popular that's actually taken this from us. So we could basically go in any direction. So let's be real. What most people want is a most wanted update. And I get it. That's the most popular in terms of published figures, the best sales that Need for Speed has ever got. But we've got Hot Pursuit in there, so it kind of throws a little bit of a curveball, in my opinion. Hell, one of my thoughts was we could have a Pro Street type update, because the whole idea of Kaizen is to craft an experience that has every experience in one game. They want to make this a designated space where you can enjoy Need for Speed and whatever you think it is. And then that's a really cool idea, because that's the only element that they're kind of missing from the spectrum of things. They've got track courses in the game, but let's be honest, there's really not much use case for these locations. There's actually multiple of these places that could be used for some really cool professional like track racing experiences. So whether it's Pro Street or whether it's Need for Speed Shift, they could do that. But again, those are possibly some of the worst selling Need for Speeds. It began, in fact, with Pro Street, the downfall in Need for Speed. Although, again, I later came to love Pro Street. It's factually true. People didn't really care as much when they'd gone from the most wanted in the carbons. I'm not just pulling on my ass, I promise. Our vision is that through the second year of live service, you can, for the first time, begin to play the ultimate Need for Speed experience in one place. Most Wanted, you could argue, cops are already in the game. That was kind of the big core element there. The story's already there in the single player part of the game. We've now got new Drift and Drag. Underground has been done. Hot Pursuit has been done. So what are the core pillars of the Need for Speed franchise really are there, other than a Need for Speed Pro Street-esque flavor? But I'm going to say that's not going to be it. Now, if I do say so myself, I think that's a brilliant idea, the Pro Street element. There are, again, brilliant locations they could be using for this, but I feel like you kind of need a story, a hierarchy, some kind of big feature element that... I feel like that's a future situation to build. I don't think it makes sense to just lash it on. You want to end with something huge, and ultimately, I will go 50 million other places than try and do a circuit experience in Need for Speed. It's not quite the focus that I'd want. More gameplay is ultimately the key, and if you just kind of lash more races on us and be like, bye, it's not that exciting, to be honest. Again, please don't get me wrong, that sounds a really sick idea if it was fleshed out, but I think future, like new game, that would be amazing. Oh, is it gonna be like Need for Speed Nitro then? No. So we've done the Hot Pursuits, we've done the Undergrounds. Need for Speed the Run? Probably not going to have a massive map expansion for a Need for Speed game. That sounds quite difficult. Oh, it could be Need for Speed Carbon. No. If that was the case, it's probably going to be Most Wanted. So, shout out to NFS Sly, as usual, doing some digging into this series. It would appear that the BMW M3 is getting its own special playlists. So, take that as you will. For clarity, these events are not currently in the game, but as you can see, this is the name of the event in the bottom corner. These are all hidden track layouts in the game, which we can safely assume is going to be for the multiplayer experience. They haven't been adding anything to the single player experience because, well, they'll probably break it massively if they did something, but these are hidden in the game files. It's also worth saying and worth mentioning beforehand that this could all just be coincidence because we're basically at the 30th anniversary of Need for Speed. This is No Limits, and this is what they're doing, but, you know, they can't just not celebrate the 30th anniversary of Need for Speed, so it could just be a special anniversary series of events, but I don't know, man. Adding the M3 at this time is kind of sus. You know? So to be clear, right now you can already get the M3 in the game, but the only way to get the M3 is actually by paying for EA Play, which is... it's not great. It means to play with the genuine M3, you have to pay a monthly subscription. And that's how you get it. There's no alternative right now. I think the problem with the Most Wanted theory arrives when you start to think about it for more than 2 seconds. Because if you think, all right, Need for Speed Most Wanted, what makes Need for Speed Most Wanted? Of course, it's the story, the progression, the characters, things like that. But core game elements is basically what they've been adding for the underground updates and so on. So pursuit breakers, the bounty system. Beyond that, I don't really know what would be added to the game. But then the theory lines up with the whole idea of Kaizen because they're adding the elements to build up to something bigger and bigger and bigger. They added the ability to play as cops previously. Now, that's not necessarily a Need for Speed Most Wanted thing, but they're not building things exactly the same. They're ultimately being inspired by it. So maybe they're doing a Most Wanted bounty system with the ability for players, but isn't that just the Hot Pursuit update? Yeah, that's kind of just the Hot Pursuit update. Do you see what I mean? There's not really a way to flesh out the Most Wanted kind of element. Again, maybe they're just going for the inspired approach, but it doesn't... There's few elements I can imagine that they would pick from to ultimately make it a Most Wanted experience that makes it significantly different over the underground experience. You know, they're kind of aligned. That's the underground era of games. While I'm not saying it's completely impossible, I feel like even the earlier theory of track racing, I can think of a million other more things that could be added as a new experience of the game for this, but if they're building to something, I guess Most Wanted makes more sense because they've now got the drag races and they've got the underground theme pre-done. Hell, maybe it's a complete rework of how the cop system works, which I would not be afraid of. I would actually be very willing for that because the cops in this game, quite frankly, are one of the weak points. Here's one last theory I want to throw at you. If it's not Pro Street and it's not Most Wanted, It's got the M3. It's got to be a game with the M3, maybe. It could be completely unrelated, 30th anniversary, blah, blah, blah. What if it's Need for Speed Heat inspired? Need for Speed Heat had the day-night switch system, which was pretty significant. It had the day races, which were Pro Street-esque inspired. They had the Speed Hunter Showdown, really aggressive cops. I feel like if any game has more to bring to the table, it's got to be Need for Speed Heat. Anyway, I can sit here theorizing all day, but I'm pretty assuming that you guys also have your own theories on what could be brought to the table. But I think we've slimmed it down to some significant pillars, and hell, if not, maybe they can use as inspiration for the next game as to what we'd like to see. But anyway, to the sad point, yes, this indeed is likely the final update for the game. At least that's been announced. They could always extend it. But the realistic side of things is that's what they've announced, and so it's probably going to be the last. I mean, the worst case scenario is that we won't get updates for Unbound anymore. We won't get another Need for Speed game, and everybody forever will always be on Battlefield. So usually there's a little way that you can check when the update is coming out. Of course, according to the image, it says it's coming out between October and December, which is a little bit of a wide gap. But normally, if you just go in the game and press pause, oh, the premium speed pass isn't showing where... Also, I didn't know I could get some wheels. I need to get to level 67. Yeah, normally it says at the bottom, the season will end in blah, 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 blah. It doesn't currently say that, which is a little weird, but also just tells us that, you know, last time they had to delay a little bit and they just don't want to give a false kind of positive. But we have got the update coming out between this month and December, which is a pretty decent window. We just don't know exactly when. I'm pretty certain the idea is going to be this month or next month, December. Seems a little crazy if you ask me, but I really do hope they take the time that they need to get this to the state that it should be at before they release it, whatever they're working on. I think Need for Speed Heat inspired just kind of makes sense. It's the most popular of the recent games, and it can have the Pro Street vibes in there, and they got the special anniversary stuff. Hell, bring back Anna. I'm just throwing ideas at the wall now. Anyway, what are your theories? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you sad? Let me know. I'll see you in the next video. In case you didn't see the update, by the way, it was kind of... There was so many games coming out, and they all kind of failed, and I came back to Need for Speed. You can check out the videos here. They did do an update, and it was pretty good.